Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about the importance of high mechanical complexity for social interaction, the second pillar of Dungeons & Dragons, and what's at stake. There's huge stakes on this. So I have said this in the past, and I'm bringing it forward again, but this time I'm bringing you evidence, right, to bolster my position, right? So I think what's happened in Dungeons & Dragons is we have three pillars, right? Gary Gygax set these into Dungeons & Dragons in 1974, and in 2014, Mike Mearls perfectly encapsulated them and kind of presented them as very prominently highlighting them and saying, hey, these are key to what Dungeons & Dragons really is. And I think, Gary was right to build them, and Mike Mearls was right to highlight them for the world and point the whole world to them and say, this is what Dungeons & Dragons is about. The three pillars are combat, social interaction, and exploration. Now, we have had massive high complexity on combat for decades. THAC0 and, vulnerabilities and resistances, and there's just like armor and weapons and hit dice, and there is literally huge mechanical complexity that has been in Dungeons & Dragons from start to finish on combat, right? But social interaction, and every dungeon master who's a real dungeon master and has done some actual dungeon mastering at length, at scale, right, has spent 2 to 3 to 4, maybe 8 hours running a single combat, right, because of this massive complexity. But it's highly unlikely that any dungeon master has ever spent even more than 20 minutes figuring out a single social interaction scene. And the reason why is the complexity on it, the rules mechanics complexity on it, is outrageously slow. The first time this stopped was with the publication of Strixhaven, which had actual rules mechanical complexity for friendship, for befriending someone, and for becoming someone's beloved, right? And there's rules mechanics, high complexity, the beginning of high complexity for social interaction, right? So right here on this channel, I've said this, we need high complexity on social interaction, and we can't even discuss high complexity on exploration until social interaction is established. That's like its own video, but I'm going to set that there. I don't think it's not even possible to start on high mechanical complexity until high mechanical complexity is very underway, and we're just at the beginning of it for social interaction. And one of the reasons we had to work for 48 years, right? We worked for 47 years before we got any significant mechanical complexity on social interaction, right? So you will hear people say, well, there's no need for high mechanical complexity on social interaction. I got 2 or 3 commenters who have left out no less than a dozen times on here, right? And so today I'm presenting evidence that they are 100% wrong. What is that evidence? It is the breakdown by a communication professor of an interview between Dolly Parton and Barbara Walters. It's linked below, but I'm going to explain it right now. So Barbara Walters opens with Dolly Parton, and she said it a little bit different, but she's like, "You're a hillbilly," right? Like, just like flat out accuses her of being a hillbilly, I guess she kind of asked her, "Are you a hillbilly?" Right? Like, and Dolly Parton immediately says, "Well, I come from a line of people, and they may not have the most education, but they're incredibly intelligent, and they have a simple connection to the truth." That is powerful, right? And so, this is a strike. This is a combative conversation. A strike and a parry, right? You could see it. And it goes, and this communication professor goes point by point, and by literally sentence group by sentence group, and says, here, Dolly Parton plus. And then he says, and Barbara Walters minus, right? And he goes, and 4 times in the video, he says, question, statement, answer, statement, question, answer, statement, question, right? And he goes point by point by point, right? And says, successful hit here, parry here, right? And it's incredible. And he's saying, this is a combative, and he uses different words, but he's essentially saying, this is a combative conversation. This is your winner, this is your loser, right? And so the external Dungeons & Dragons, the D&D external world, this communication professor is saying, absolutely, there's massive mechanical complexity to social interaction. Frankly, if you're paying attention, it's way higher than combat, right? So if we can see in this interview that clearly there is outrageous mechanical complexity to social interaction, but we're not acknowledging it and we're not dealing with it in Dungeons & Dragons, why is that? What is the reason for the lack of us to build mechanical complexity around social interaction? I'm going to give you your answer right now. Fear. 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 Dungeons & Dragons has been marinated in fear from the day it was born, right? In 1974, everybody who played war games was like, oh my gosh, this dude sitting over here saying, hey, let's determine with what one of these tokens had for breakfast and their personal relationships, this could topple our entire industry. And it did. Wargaming has never recovered from the devastating blow that Dungeons & Dragons put to it, and TTRPGs are way larger than the wargaming hobby today, right? Like Citadel didn't do $1 billion in business. Games Workshop didn't do $1 billion of business in 2021. Wizards of the Coast did, right? So with Dungeons & Dragons, right? And the reality is, so it's fear. The other thing is in the 80s, if you think, oh no, Scott, there is, Dungeons & Dragons isn't marinated in fear. Yes, it is. War games are first. There was the Satanic Panic in the 1980s, and there was the Prom Panic in 2021. Again, Strixhaven delved into social interaction, and people lost their freaking minds. They were like, oh no, there are two males dancing at a prom. I'm frightened, right? Dungeons & Dragons has always been marinated in fear, and that fear is 100% warranted, right? There are a lot of grognards out there who are like, I will learn the most tiniest minutia about a longbow, but if you ask me to start thinking about how humans communicate, I might have to learn about myself, and that terrifies me, right? And that's the issue. That is why there is so much pushback, and you will find people on this very video, give it a day or two, and you'll see exactly the suspects who are like, oh, yeah, here's my reason why social interaction has to be desperately avoided, because I'm terrified of it. They'll use different words, but that's what they're saying. You'll find them here already. Just go through my comments. You'll be like, you will find people terrified of the idea of Dungeons & Dragons actually opening up mechanical social complexity, mechanical complexity on social interaction. And this is my point, right? They're right. They should be terrified because the stakes are massive on this, right? We had millions of charismatic, confident, intelligent people studying medieval weapons at the finest detail. You take that same energy and you turn it on humanity itself, right? There's going to be some real stakes on the ground there. Things are going to change, right? We could change society with that type of energy. And that's what I've been saying all along. And that's where the rubber meets the road, right? And Dungeons & Dragons stops becoming a game and starts becoming a human improvement engine. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.